Before you even think about scrolling past, stop and listen. What I'm about to share in the next few seconds can completely change the way a woman sees you. Most men go their whole lives saying things that kill attraction without even realizing it. But if you stay with me, I'm going to give you 3 simple compliments that make her think about you long after the conversation ends. This isn't about looks, charm, or cheesy lines. It's about something far more powerful. Take a breath, focus, and let me show you how to make her feel truly noticed. Welcome to the Lauren Psychology Diary. I'm Lauren, and today we're diving into something that most men misunderstand completely. The 3 powerful compliments that make a woman think about you long after the conversation ends, and more importantly, why they work on a psychological level. Because the truth is this, attraction is rarely created by what most people think. It's not the obvious words, it's not the rehearsed lines, and it's definitely not the surface-level compliments that everyone throws around without thought. Now, before we go any deeper, I want you to pause for a moment and think about something. Have you ever walked away from a conversation with someone and hours later, you were still thinking about what they said? Not because it was loud, not because it was dramatic, but because it felt strangely personal, like they noticed something about you that most people miss. If you've ever experienced that feeling, you already understand the psychological doorway we're about to walk through together. And if you haven't, stay with me, because by the end of this conversation, you'll understand exactly how those moments are created. Because here's the truth most men are never taught. Women don't remember every compliment they hear. In fact, most compliments disappear almost instantly. You're beautiful. You have pretty eyes. You look amazing. Nice words, but forgettable. And here's why. A woman may hear variations of those phrases dozens, sometimes hundreds of times in her life. From strangers, from coworkers, from people who barely know her. So her mind naturally filters them out. But when a man says something that feels specific, observant, and emotionally intelligent, her brain reacts in a completely different way. Psychologically, something fascinating happens. Her attention sharpens. Her emotional brain becomes more active, and a small question begins forming quietly in the back of her mind. How did he notice that? That question is powerful, because curiosity is one of the strongest emotional drivers in human attraction. And when curiosity combines with emotional recognition, a memory forms. A memory she replays, sometimes hours later, sometimes days later, sometimes when she's completely alone and her mind drifts back to the conversation. Now let me share something many men find surprising. Women don't fantasize about the man who tries the hardest. They don't obsess over the man who compliments the most. They think about the man who notices something real, something authentic, something unexpected. And this isn't guesswork. Psychological research on emotional bonding consistently shows that people feel closer to those who demonstrate genuine recognition of their internal world. Not just what they look like, but how they think, how they feel, who they really are. This is why shallow compliments disappear so quickly. They never reach the deeper emotional layer. But when a compliment touches something meaningful, something personal, something a woman values about herself, it lingers. Now here's where things become interesting. Most men believe women are complicated, but the truth is actually much simpler. Women are emotionally attentive in ways most men were never taught to be. From a young age, many women learn to read tone, body language, subtle signals in conversation. They notice pauses, shifts in expression, the intention behind words. So when a man speaks in a way that reflects emotional awareness, it immediately stands out. It feels rare, and rarity creates value. Now, before I reveal the first compliment, there's something important you need to understand. The words themselves are not magic. Anyone can repeat a sentence, but the emotional presence behind the words is what gives them power. When a compliment is delivered with genuine curiosity and calm confidence, it resonates. When it's delivered like a rehearsed line, it feels hollow. And women can sense that difference almost instantly. So, as we talk about these compliments today, I want you to focus less on memorizing phrases and more on understanding the emotional principle behind them. Because once you understand the psychology, you won't need scripts. You'll naturally speak in ways that create deeper connection. Now, the first compliment is surprisingly simple, but when spoken with sincerity, it hits a woman's emotional core in a way most men never expect. I love the way your mind works. At first glance, that might sound subtle, but psychologically, it lands with incredible depth. Because instead of complimenting something temporary, like appearance, you're recognizing something she has spent her entire life developing. Her thoughts, her perspective, her intelligence, her creativity. And here's something fascinating. Many women receive far fewer compliments about their thinking than about their appearance. Even women who are highly intelligent often hear comments about how they look long before anyone acknowledges how they think. So when a man genuinely appreciates her mind, it feels different. It feels meaningful. It feels personal. And more importantly, it feels rare. Imagine this moment. You're sitting with a woman during a conversation. She shares an idea. Maybe it's about a book she loves, or an opinion about something happening in the world, or a creative thought about a problem she solved. Instead of nodding politely and moving on, you pause. You smile slightly and say, "I really love the way your mind works." Now watch what happens. For a brief moment, her brain pauses. Not dramatically, just subtly. Because she's processing something unexpected. You didn't react to how she looked. You reacted to how she thinks. And that tells her something important. You're actually paying attention. You're not just looking at her, you're seeing her. That distinction is incredibly powerful. Because emotional recognition creates psychological safety. And safety allows curiosity to grow. Curiosity leads to deeper conversation. Deeper conversation leads to emotional connection. This is why that one simple compliment can echo in her mind long after the conversation ends. But let's go deeper. Here's a practical exercise you can try in real life. The next time you're talking with a woman, whether it's someone you're dating, someone you just met, or even someone you've known for years, practice noticing how she thinks. Does she analyze problems creatively? Does she ask thoughtful questions? Does she see patterns others miss? Instead of focusing on appearance, focus on observation. Then reflect that observation back to her. Not with exaggeration, not with flattery, just with genuine recognition. Because when someone feels intellectually seen, they feel valued, and people naturally gravitate toward those who make them feel valued. Now here's where things become even more interesting. Once a woman feels that kind of recognition, her imagination often begins filling in the gaps. She may start wondering, what else does he notice about me? And that question alone can bring your presence back into her thoughts hours later. Now the second compliment goes even deeper, because it touches a part of a woman that many people misunderstand. Every woman carries a private emotional world, thoughts she doesn't always share, dreams she hasn't fully expressed, fears she hides behind humor or confidence. And when someone senses that emotional layer, something inside her opens. The compliment is this: there's something about your energy that stays with me. Now, to many men, that might sound poetic, but psychologically, it does something fascinating. It suggests impact. You're telling her that her presence affected you in a way that lasted beyond the moment. And impact creates significance. Think about the questions many people quietly ask themselves in social interactions. Did I say something wrong? Did I seem awkward? Did I leave a good impression? Even confident people have these thoughts occasionally. So when you say that her energy stayed with you, you answer that question in the most reassuring way possible. You tell her she made an impression, not because she tried to, but because something about her naturally resonated with you. And that word, energy, is important, because it's intentionally open-ended. It allows her mind to wonder which part of her created that feeling. Was it her humor, her warmth, her curiosity, her confidence? That curiosity becomes a mental loop. And mental loops are powerful psychological anchors. Now let me tell you a short story. A friend of mine once told a woman after a conversation, "You know what's interesting about you? I kept thinking about your energy after we talked." He didn't say it as a pickup line. He said it almost casually, and she paused. Then she asked, "What do you mean?" That question wasn't defensive. It was curious, and curiosity means engagement. The conversation that followed lasted hours, not because he tried to impress her, but because he made her feel uniquely memorable. That's the difference between surface interaction and emotional connection. Now here's a small practical tip. When you say something like this, keep your tone calm, not overly intense, not overly dramatic, just genuine, because authenticity amplifies emotional impact. And if you're enjoying this conversation so far, take a second to like the video. It might seem like a small action, but it helps these conversations reach more people who are trying to understand human connection in a deeper way. Now, the third compliment may be the most emotionally powerful of all, because it taps into something many women feel instinctively: a desire to create emotional peace in the lives of people they care about. The compliment is simple. "I feel calmer when I talk to you." At first glance, that might sound almost understated, but psychologically, it communicates something profound. You're telling her that her presence has a soothing effect on you, not because she's fixing anything, not because she's solving problems, but simply because being around her feels grounding. And that kind of recognition touches a very deep emotional instinct. Many women don't just want to excite someone, they want to matter. They want their presence to feel meaningful. When you say she brings you calm, you're telling her that being around her creates a sense of emotional balance. And emotional balance is incredibly attractive. Think about the difference between someone who creates stress in your life and someone who creates ease. Which person do you naturally want to spend more time with? Exactly. Calmness signals emotional safety, and emotional safety creates trust. Now imagine telling a woman this after a thoughtful conversation. "I don't know what it is, but I always feel calmer when I talk to you." That moment lands differently than a typical compliment, because you're describing an experience, not an evaluation. You're sharing how she affects you emotionally, and emotional honesty is magnetic. Now here's something I want you to remember. These compliments are powerful not because they are clever. They're powerful because they reflect genuine awareness. And awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence. When someone feels deeply seen, they often begin to see you differently too. Connection becomes mutual, energy becomes shared, and conversations begin to carry emotional weight. This is what makes someone unforgettable. Not loudness, not flashiness, but presence. So, the next time you talk with a woman, slow down. Listen more closely. Notice small details. And when you speak, speak from observation rather than assumption. You'll be surprised how quickly the dynamic changes. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these compliments do you think would create the strongest emotional reaction? The one about her mind, her energy, or the calm she brings into a conversation? Write the number 1, 2, or 3 in the comments. I read more of your responses than you might expect, and your thoughts often inspire future conversations on this channel. And if today's video gave you a new perspective on emotional connection, make sure you subscribe to the Lauren Psychology Diary and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next discussion. Because here, we don't just talk about attraction. We talk about understanding people on a deeper psychological level. And once you understand that level, every interaction begins to feel different, more meaningful, more intentional, more human. And remember this, people rarely forget the person who made them feel truly noticed. So take your time, pay attention, speak with sincerity, and watch how powerful the right words can become when they come from genuine awareness. And before you go, leave one word in the comments. Write the word noticed if this conversation made you realize something new about emotional connection. I'll see you in the next video.